our guest for this morning is already, for this hour rather, is already in the studio. And we'll introduce him in a minute as we get into things. Today's proverb from Eritrea.
Yes, this is our second last day. Mheshimiwa, we'll want you to tell us what you think of the proverb after I have actually read it.
Thank you.
When you throw a stone at God, it comes back right on top of your head. Throw a stone at God, stone comes back on your head. What do you make of it?
And of course, I think God has a final say on everything. And so you cannot challenge him. You cannot question him. And everything starts and ends with God.
Okay. And in some places, an introduction. Honorable Martin Webuye is, Honorable Martin Pepela is the MP for Webuye East. And he's also a member of the National Assembly's Committee on Health.
Exactly.
Karibu sana to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Asante sana for inviting me here today. I think the first time I'm here.
It is.
I'm a member of Webuye East, a member of Parliament, also a member of the Health Committee. And I think it's also important to note that this being my first day here, the first person with albinism being elected in the Republic of Kenya. Exactly. I'm the first one.
You are the first one.
I was the first to be. 2013, I was nominated as an MCA. 2017, I was elected as an MCA, and here I am, elected as a member of Parliament.
Oh, Karibu sana.
I don't know what tomorrow holds, but
for now we deal with today.
God, yeah.
And you're in the hot seat of Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you so much.
And there are some hot questions about a hot issue that is taking place today. So, in addition to being Member of Parliament for Webuye East, you also sit on the Committee for Health.
Yes.
And jumping right into that conversation this morning, we were dealt the blows from the beginning of the story last week about the issues that are rocking KEMSA. But it's not the first time. It did not start with the mosquito net tender scandal. Neither did it start even with the COVID billionaires. Before that, we saw other things. Today in the dailies, if we can give this some context, the EACC, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, has told us that the majority of health projects are mad in graft. Money that was supposed to go for certain projects, money that was supposed to make sure that the infrastructure of the health system in the country doesn't happen, money that was supposed to ensure that there was proper distribution of elements, whether it was from donor-funded projects or otherwise in terms of medicine. There is an element of corruption in each and every one of these, especially when it has to do with KEMSA. The burning question that we have today, we've seen a shake-up at KEMSA. Some people have been asked to go home. Some people have been sacked. Some people have been suspended. There has been a total restructuring of things. So, Mheshimiwa, the question is this morning, as you sit on the Committee of Health, where is this conversation? And have you been able to deliberate on it?
Thank you so much. Of course, when we were campaigning, especially as a member of Kenya Kwanza, there's one thing we promised the people of Kenya, that we will not leave anybody behind in terms of access to healthcare, and we are going to implement UHC. At the center of UHC is KEMSA. KEMSA is in charge of purchasing, or rather procuring, warehousing, and distribution of pharmaceuticals. And so KEMSA is as important as the realization of UHC. And that's why I think as a committee, we've sat with KEMSA not once, not twice, to see how we can be able to turn around KEMSA to ensure that it can be able to live true to its mandate. But I think really, I remember the first time when we sat with the CEO that time, she sounded to be helpless. She sounded to be somebody really who is just waiting to leave. I remember even that first meeting, the board did not really appear. When we had summoned the board did not appear. So there's actually KEMSA's problem is just is both administrative, it's leadership, and even policy-wise, because I think there's need also to, beyond just sacking the people that have gone, which I think for me was a good move, because GOK, the government of Kenya, only gives KEMSA around 400 million. Much of the money that helps KEMSA to run is donor-funded. And there's no way donors can continue supporting KEMSA is if there's no trust and confidence in terms of what they're doing. So I think really, as a committee, we've even today summoned the KEMSA leadership to appear before the committee, plus the CS, to be able to explain really what they know and why we are in this state. And I want to really assure the country, for us as a committee, we are committed to ensuring that we give a statement or a report that really will be able to live through the expectation of the people, and will not leave anybody. Will not spare anybody. As a committee, we are ready and willing to be able to get to the bottom of this matter. But I think really the way we just said it, addressing the issue of healthcare in this country is beyond KEMSA. There's also NHIF. As we speak today, there are so many hospitals today who are unable to treat people just because NHIF is not remitting their contributions. They are not remitting the money that they owe these hospitals. And yet, the people continue paying money through Linda Mama, through NHIF cards and all that. So I think addressing the issue of health in this country requires actions beyond just what we are seeing president doing. But I think I'm happy that for the first time we are seeing a president who is not winning through arguments, but through action, and that's what really we want to see in this country. We don't want just people to go to the media, try to defend their case, how they are fighting corruption. We want to see action being taken by the relevant agencies, by even the number one himself, the way he has done with the KEMSA, the way he has done with these other guys these are the ministries. So I think really that's what we want to see. Okay.
So from the things that you've said so far, it is clear that the problem here is corruption.
Exactly.
The problem here is corruption, it is impunity. Because let's make a list. If we talk about KEMSA, there's a list under the title KEMSA of things that have gone belly up, that have gone bad. If you want to start with the most recent case, something clearly went wrong.
Yeah.
Another number was thrown at us yesterday of 874 million that people received money for just before the general election, all coming out of KEMSA. Before that, money that was meant to procure PPEs during COVID, again, disappeared under KEMSA and made people rich. The problem is not KEMSA, the problem is corruption.
Exactly.
Let's look at the MES scandal, whereby, again, still another health issue, whereby equipment came into the country that was supposed to sort people out, whether it was radiotherapy, whether it was ultrasound. What is this thing that we do? Dialysis machines sitting in different parts of the country, not being used. Meanwhile, these people are being paid money every month for leasing. Health Committee, which you were not a member of at that time, came back, did not name any names. They just told us, yes, money has been lost, and that's it.
And yet that money is deducted from the intended coffers of the county government.
Exactly.
So what is
and that's why even as a committee, like on the issue of MES, we've been very clear. The previous health committee were unable to interrogate the contract of MES. But for us, we've said, for us to put money in this budget, this 2023-2024 budget, they must be able to make available the contract that is binding the county government and the ministry as far as this program of, or rather project of MES is concerned. Because see, there are counties where there's some equipment that are being given that they don't need, or even they don't have the necessary manpower or the human resource to be able to operationalize those particular equipment. So that's why you're saying as a government, probably as even as a committee, we want to be able to see value for our money. And how do you explain? Like KEMSA, there are around 400 staff who are being paid and they are not working. They're working at home, from home. How? And so there's so many issues within the Ministry of Health, and which for me, I'm just hoping and praying that Susan will be able to have the necessary guts and courage and face all these scandals and all this mess within her ministry, and she can be able to live to true what she promised the people of Kenya when she was being vetted by the Committee on Appointment led by the Speaker himself. So there's so many issues. That one I can agree.
If we're to speak bluntly on this subject, really, do you honestly think that any CS in the Ministry of Health, whether it's a current one or any, yes, you know where I'm going with this. I see you laughing. Do you really think that just the individual is able to sort out this problem that we have seen in the Ministry of Health that has traversed very many governments? It's not this government, it's not the previous ones. There's always been an issue there. And there are people whose power seems to go beyond that of the CS.
Indeed.
Yes.
Because, I'm just going to contribute to that, Mweshimiwa. The most immediate former CS stood on the steps of Afia House at the beginning of his tenure.
Yes.
And he said, we are going to root out all the cartels here in this mafia house, pointed with his thumb behind him, and said in those years under his administration, corruption and impunity was going to be a thing of the past from Afia House.
And this was a CS who
No
we
sooner
believe
than
had the serious support of the then president. And then what did we see?
COVID billionaires.
Yeah, but I think as Obama one time said that every time is the right time to do the right thing. Maybe this might be the right time to fix corruption within the Ministry of Health once and for all.
I agree with you. You see, I do not doubt that the minister, the current CS, will make the necessary effort. I am simply saying it will not be enough, because we have seen CSs who we believed had the support even of the sitting president, and yet things just kept going wrong, and you wonder what on earth is going on here. We even saw the immediate former president sack a whole slew of procurement officers within government.
Exactly.
Well, they were stopped, they were suspended from work. Did that change anything? The answer is a resounding no, it did not change anything. So now, it brings this discussion back to Parliament, because the only organ we have that has the teeth to genuinely do anything about such matters is Parliament.
Exactly. And that's what I think, as I've said, right from when we were considered as a committee, we have been able to interrogate the issue of mess, which Kenyans themselves did not really believe that it was the right thing to do. We've demanded for the contract, which we've said we are not going to approve the budget proposals without that particular contract. The issue of KEMSA, we are on it, and as I've said, the issue of NHIF, we have been having meetings with NHIF, and I think really we are making headway. And so for me, the fact that the previous government did not fix this, the difference between then and now is that the previous government used to talk about how they are fighting corruption, and they used to win their arguments through media and all that. For us, we are acting. When you see the president doing what he did the other day, I think for me that's a demonstration that indeed he is committed. For the first time, a PS was fired 6 months after her assumption of office. Yes, I think really that is for me is a statement enough of the commitment of this government to be able to root out corruption within its various parastatals. The only thing we are hoping is that we will go beyond what we are doing and also strengthen these agencies through legislations or through policy decisions. Because when you look at even KEMSA, yes, there's corruption within KEMSA. But again, county governments own KEMSA billions of money. And KEMSA itself is even helpless to be able to push and enforce payment of these monies to the agency.
Why do county governments owe KEMSA so much money? Why?
And why are they
It is because PFM Act as it is, and because of the delay in exchequer, most of these pharmaceuticals are given to the counties through through madenis.
through debt.
Through debts. They don't pay promptly. And you see, the PFM Act does not have provision to force county governments to pay KEMSA within the stipulated time frame. And so because of that, you realize KEMSA continues supplying medicine and Medicare to counties, but counties are not paying. And so we need to amend the PFM Act to be able to ensure that there's a provision that provides that if KEMSA supplies to county this particular drugs or medicine or Medicare, the county is supposed to pay KEMSA within this particular period, which is not there. Which is not there within the law. And so the issues around all these agencies, KEMSA included, requires something beyond change of leadership and also change of the laws governing these particular agencies.
So are you saying with the change of the leadership at the helm of KEMSA right now, we've seen a new chairperson, we've seen a reappointment of a new PS, we've seen that new CEO in acting capacity, somebody who has been within the corridors of the health system for a while. Also, what you're saying is that is not enough. That is not going to change the situation. Will there still be another scandal looming even if you change the leadership?
No, I'm not saying that there'll be other scandal. What I'm saying is that we must come together the way we are coming together, Parliament, executive, and all these other stakeholders, to be able to really ask ourselves what are the issues that needs to be addressed to have KEMSA up and running, to have KEMSA live true to its mandate of procuring, of warehousing, and prompt supply and distribution of drugs to our hospitals and to the county government. So that was saying, yes, President is doing very well in terms of addressing the issues around the leadership. But again, even as Parliament, we also need to move and look into the laws governing KEMSA, governing NHIF, and all these agencies to ensure that really we fill and seal the loopholes that are being used by these cartels to siphon the public taxes.
As much as there's an appetite to change the leadership or an appetite to talk about corruption, do you think that there is an appetite to plug the holes through which a lot of these corruption activities are taking place? Is there an appetite to really stop this corruption and impunity that we see on a daily basis?
Yes,
Look at the situation today with KEMSA, where 3 million people, probably more, would have access to mosquito nets that could essentially stop the consequences of the killer malaria disease. And here we are, not even sure that is going to happen.
I think from where I sit, there's every reason to trust that there's appetite for us to root out this corruption. Because one, President has said, we want to reduce borrowing. We want to finance our programs through our own local revenue raising. How do you do that if we don't root out corruption? How will we be able to finance our programs locally with our local revenue if we don't root out corruption? Secondly, how will we realize UHC, which the president himself has said, you must be able to have UHC up and running before the close of this year? How will we do that if we don't root out corruption? Because I've told you, KEMSA, government only gives KEMSA around 400 million. The rest of the budget of KEMSA, the development budget of KEMSA largely comes from donors. the Global Fund, and all these other donors. How will you be able to win the trust and the confidence of these donors if we don't root out corruption? So I think really there's every reason for us to root out corruption, and there's every reason for the president to do what he can to root out corruption. And really for me, that's why on that basis, I trust that there's goodwill. And we've said the previous CS had the president's goodwill, and I think really Susan Nahomicha has equally president support and goodwill, and even our own committee, so far we are doing very well with her, and so she has every reason from political goodwill to legislative support to be able to root out corruption in Afia House.
Which, well, let me give you a perspective. There are those who argue that when one seeks to solve a problem, one must understand what the problem is. That if you try to solve a problem and you do not understand it, then even talking about its genesis and then going into the details of how it is you can solve or resolve it becomes an impossibility. You see, every government that comes in talks about rooting out corruption, and they point out that corruption is the problem, yet corruption is not the problem. The problem is impunity. People know they can get away with doing wrong, so they keep doing wrong. Now, unless it is understood and we believe that that can be done, and the question is, how does it come about? If you look at the way we run our businesses and the way our governments are run, this government, the previous government, it's cronyism, okay? I pick people whom I like, I pick people whom I get along with. By the way, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that politically, because people want to work with people they can trust.
Exactly.
But the problem with that, it leads to something which is worse. It's called crony capitalism, meaning even when it comes to the business of ensuring that the government benefits from the business they do, that element of friendship is then interwoven into everything that is done, and within it there is that protection that breeds and keeps breeding new varieties of impunity. So people know, so long as I'm attached to so and so, nothing's going to happen to me. Now, you are right and you're spot on when you say the action the president took with regards to KEMSA points us in the direction that we're hoping. But then, as Parliament, how do you ensure that these standards, the ethical and moral standards that Chapter 6 was intended to not just convey but to entrench, are there, so that without the president intervening, we know that when someone abrogates this particular way of doing things, then the consequences are dire, and this is what it should be. Because as things stand, just the mere mention that there is wrong doesn't move anybody in this country.
Yes, sir.
Even when people say, look, there's evidence, even when matters go to court, people are still not moved.
Until they are sentenced.
Yes, even when they're sentenced, they're still not moved.
Until they are taken to the cell.
Even when they're taken to the cell, some of them are still not moved. I mean, what I'm trying to say is, it's like they keep saying, we'll go to court. Yes. And if we don't, then we'll go to the appellate court. There doesn't seem to be a sense that within the leadership of this country, most of the political, that actually they shouldn't commit wrong. They shouldn't do wrong things. It's like they think that they themselves appear as though they're above the law. So when they commit wrong, you should excuse it and let it go. Now,
exactly.
That is impunity.
That's true.
Is new leadership going to solve the problem?
No, I think I've said, and I still repeat, that KEMSA problems are beyond change of leadership. KEMSA problems are partly leadership, but also partly legislative. There's so much gaps within the law governing KEMSA as established now. And that's why, as a health committee, we are already interrogating that particular act to see to it that we are able to flag out the issues that are creating the loopholes for these scandals and for the cartels to be able to siphon and rob KEMSA. And so really, that's why I've previously, even before my committee, I've said, yes, we are working hard to change leadership, which is support the president, but again, we must also support KEMSA legislative-wise. And that one we are already underway. And we are very soon be tabling some amendments within the KEMSA Act to be able to ensure that that particular act is strengthened. I've said also beyond the KEMSA Act, there's also the issue of the PFM Act, which is unable to help KEMSA enforce payment of the outstanding debts by the county governments, which really is running into billions. And if that money is given to KEMSA, it can be able to really see KEMSA up and running. And so that is also important, the PFM Act being amended. And thirdly or fourthly, there's also the need for us together to help win back the trust and the confidence of KEMSA in the public domain and also within our donors. That's why I'm hoping that the new chair, the new chair was been appointed 2 days ago, and the acting CEO, they will also go out of their way to ensure that they win trust and the confidence of our donors and our development partners to continue supporting KEMSA. Because as I said, GOK is not even contributing half of the budget that runs KEMSA. GOK is only supporting KEMSA with around 400 million. So largely KEMSA is donor funded, and those donors needs to believe and trust that KEMSA is open, is accountable, is transparent. So I think really there's so much that needs to be done. And the previous regime, they used to talk so much about how they are fighting corruption. I'm so sure you rarely hear William Ruto talk about fighting corruption.
Well, but, exactly. I think exactly.
Yes.
But then why?
It's
I think that's the
because
question.
he believes.
We rarely hear it. So
believes.
why? And it's clear from what you've said, Mweshimiwa,
He
that
believes.
it is a problem.
Yes.
Okay,
Because
so
William believes in winning through action, not through argument.
And so
And
are
that's
you
why
saying essentially that the action that we've seen in the last 48 hours is some of the stuff that we're talking about
Exactly.
now?
I'm saying he rarely talks about corruption because he believes he cannot win corruption or fight corruption through arguments. He believes he can win this corruption through actions and the way he's doing. So I think really we are hoping, and I know there's so much is going to be done in future. And he made a commitment. You saw the other day when he had State of the Nation address, State House. In fact, he used one sentence to speak about what he's going to do with KEMSA, and you've seen it. So I think really for me, we want to see beyond the president, even Waziri Susan also supporting the move of the president, which we have no doubt that she has what it takes to be able to root out corruption in Afya House and its agencies.
That one is a tall order, my friend. That one. It's a tall order.
If we don't do it, my friends, if we don't do it, UHC will not be achieved. If we don't do it, we will not be able to finance our programs. We will continue borrowing. And we're already in a hole as a country. So fighting corruption is not two-way. We only have one way. We have to do it.
You know, Mweshimiwa, whenever Kenyans talk about fighting corruption, we talk about it in amorphous terms and we generalize it. And yet, the one aspect of impunity that not has only been manifested but has been documented by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, by the Auditor General, and spoken of by the immediate former president and other agencies. People talking about a total of some 700 billion being lost every year. People talking about 2.7 billion being lost every day. You see, these figures tell us that if that hemorrhaging is stopped, see, the cronyism, the process of rewarding, political rewardings with the positions, these things help build impunity.
That's true.
And so the hemorrhaging takes place simply because people know I can fiddle with the taxpayers' money, I can try and fiddle with donor money, and no one is going to do anything about it. Now, if we do not halt this, because halting that, in my opinion, immediately tells us that this money that is being lost will be available. Because if I stop the 2 billion every day, then it means 2 billion is available. Yes. Now, this is money that is lost through government contracts. It is lost through interesting payments that are made, falsified. I mean, all sorts of things which have been, again, documented. Now, yes, the president has fired that first shot we've seen.
Yes.
Now, what we're waiting for is a continuum.
Yes.
But beyond the continuum, it has to be a system that doesn't require the president's intervention for it to work. Because the president is one person.
That's true.
Now, you in parliament, I'm not leaving this one. I'm talking about this one. You, Shimiwa, are you willing to help the president fight this fight? Because many of the problems that we have begin and end with you.
I think one thing I agree with you is that Kenya has one of the most robust, most progressive constitution. When you read Article 10 of the Constitution, in terms of values and principles of good governance, they are very clear, very, very progressive, very open. The challenge that for me we face as a country is living true to these values and really calculating them within ourselves. That today, when I'm found even suspected, or even it's alleged that I'm corrupt, I've stolen, I'm supposed to step down even before
anybody tells you to, your conscience should speak to you.
So that is something beyond our constitution. The constitution is clear on that. But is it within ourselves to do it? I remember last time, you remember Munya saying, I better BSG done what, but I cannot do it. I cannot resign.
No, Kimunya.
Yes.
It was almost Kimunya.
Yes.
Over his dead body.
Yes. You see?
He's still alive.
And
though.
when his case was so clear.
It's called cut and dried.
So we must now be able to convert these values and ensure that now we have a culture where people really live true to the aspirations and values of and spirit of these particular values of the Constitution. So I think really it's something that is not an event.
What the president can do.
Because I can tell you, by the way, what is it that we don't have within our laws?
Actually, we have what it needs. But
Yes.
you see, again, I think I understated this or didn't say it. Where the president plays an important role, he sets the bar.
Yes.
If people who work within government and even the people who are his cronies know that they're not above the law,
Yes.
then things change.
Exactly.
Because you will know if it comes within the purview of the law and you're found to have abrogated that very law, then you pay the price for having done so. If that is understood, then the things we're saying, we'll likely see it happening.
Very true.
Yes.
And I think really, President, firing Dr. Josephine Mburu 6 months after her appointment. And I think really, Kibaki never did that, I think. Even Uhuru Kenyatta. This is in itself is historical that a PS has been sacked 6 months after her appointment. And I think really that should be a statement enough and a signal to others. Sisi kwetu husema wale ambao wako na tabia kama hiyo. That you are not safe unless you work, unless you deliver, unless you are clear on your mandate. So I think for me, the challenge we are facing is a challenge of culture. The day when you are close to Martin here, you can do anything and everything because you are shielded from the law, from prosecution. We should not now move away from that, and everybody appreciate that all of us are under the law, and our fidelity to the law should be beyond reproach. And I think also just in culture, the culture of patriotism. That is my country,
but you know,
and I must be able to I must be able to protect it. I must be able to promote it and ensure that my country is working. So I think really it's something beyond the law.
Absolutely. And what you're saying is laudable, yes, for sure. I mean, when you say that, it's great, because then I think that we all want to say, yes, absolutely, what you're saying is right. But then the assumption is that would-be leaders, when they come clamoring, as they will in some years, and come and say, give me your vote, let me go and make some changes, the assumption is that those things that you speak of, these individuals already have them. That somebody who wants to go and serve in a legislative manner, somebody who wants to go and serve in a representative manner, somebody who wants to go and then serve in an oversight manner, right, already imbibes these attributes that you speak of. So when halfway through the game, there is the encouragement to have the elements of patriotism, or to have the elements of satisfaction, and to have the elements of wanting to go and represent your people properly, whether it is by election or appointment, is a bit worrisome. That we have to remind people that these are things that you should have at the position of leadership. Is it not worrisome? I mean, I'm a bit worried.
You see, one, for me, why I say it's doable. Let me tell you, one time before my nomination in 2013, I remember when I used to go home, people used to see me as this person with this albino person, this Muzungu. They used to call me all sorts of names. It has not taken the law to change that particular perception of my community about me. It took my nomination for people to appreciate not. Oh, these guys can also are just human beings like us. This guy can also lead. When I wanted to run in 2017, it was so difficult, by the way, because people used to see me like this person who cannot lead, who's supposed to be at the periphery. But it took my action without changing the law to now change that particular perception. And so, for me, and that's what I can tell you today, when you walk around Webuye East, and even live around Webuye East, even around the country, today, when a parent gives birth to a child with albinism, it doesn't see him or her as this albino child. When he gives birth, he sees the potential of this child, because there are those who have made it with the same condition. And so for me, what we are discussing is doable, as long as a few of us will step up and live true to what we stand for, and the rest will follow. Will follow suit.
I like what you're saying. Do you think, for instance, that within Parliament, because you are the body that vets these individuals, yes, you're laughing again?
Yes, when they come and say, I can do the job.
Yes, I can do the job. And usually there are people who will have written, have told you, this is what this person said, but this person also done this and this. This guy is a wife beater. This person, in fact, FEDA had a case against him. I mean, you read all these things, and yet the person is passed. The person is given the job. Are we saying that between the time that this report comes in and the time you vet this person, they have changed, and you're convinced that everything else that has been said about this person may be true, but it was in the past, and that what we're seeing is a new person?
Of course, within, again, our laws, somebody's innocent before is proven guilty. So, see, it's us, again, who gave ourselves this constitution. And I think that really, I think where I sit, we overborrowed, and sometimes they're not even applicable within our own scenario as a country. But we have formed government now. There's a cabinet, there are PSS, and as Parliament, I think we made also clear that we will hold them accountable anytime and every time there are issues within their particular their ministry. So I think let's give them the benefit of doubt and support the current regime to be able to deliver. And my prayer and wish also is that the president now, the way he's behaving is working. Let him root out corruption across board. And it should not just end with KEMSA or these other agencies. We want to see a clean government. And even those that you said that at the time of their vetting, they had issues. And of course, one truth is that yes, they had issues, but none of them court said convicted them. I think most of them, their cases were still alive. And the law is clear that one is innocent before he's proven guilty. And so we are hoping that they will be able to the benefit of doubt that were given, they'll be able to really demonstrate that they have what it takes to be able to deliver the mandate and the huge responsibility that the people of Kenya
the gentleman from your neck of the woods who was pronounced guilty and even sentenced.
Who was sentenced?
One Mheshimiwa Luke. Sentenced. No. It's not pending. He was sentenced. He appealed. Now,
and we didn't hear an uproar. We didn't hear an uproar from Parliament saying, "No, how can such a thing happen that he would want to come back?"
But we also need to be honest. The Honorable Oluke's case, at the time when Oluke was being nominated to run, Parliament was Parliament still on. It was not on.
I'm not even concerned whether it was on or
yes,
off.
So okay. Parliament was not on, and the time when Oluke was being nominated to run by IBC, and that time it was under Uhuru Kenyatta as president. So, and that's why, and I agree with you. This politics of convenience should also stop, because I remember that time Major shifted to Jubilee to be shielded there, and things went the way they went. So that's why it's our hope that William Ruto will be somehow different and help in the culture of constitutionalism within our system and within our government, that when you are guilty, you are guilty. Indeed. You are not innocent because you are my friend, or you are within my party or my coalition or within my fold.
There's no cap on this conversation, that's for sure. It needs to keep being had. And we want to thank you, Mheshimiwa, for joining us this morning in this, as we've been able to start opening this up. And it's one can hope against hope. Martin Pepela is the Webuye East MP and also a member of the National Assembly Committee on Health.